So I'll give you a brief overview of the evolution of this group. But before I can talk about it, I need to talk to you about the modern species, so you actually have an idea how to place the fossils in context of them. So Bandicoots and Bilbies are terrestrial marsupials, the shortest winning period of any mammal on the planet. They're typically omnivorous, though probably the smaller species are probably more insectivorous, and the pig-footed bandicoots are herbivorous. Most of the species, except for basically the pig-footed bandicoot, are armed with big claws for digging, and they are often called environment engineers because they actually spread fungal prevention everywhere and actually boost plant life. And like kangaroos, they also have a syndactylous hind foot, so they have two toes that actually fuse together on the foot. And they range between 120 grams to 5 kilos. The smallest and the biggest are both in New Guinea. We have the medium-sized range in Australia. And the most famous bandicoot is crash bandicoots. Every time I study bandicoots, if anyone knows about it, it's about the game more than anything. So there's 5 families currently. There's the Austrian bandicoots over here, the New Guinean bandicoots, the Bilbies, the pig-footed bandicoots, and a family from the Miocene called the Yaralidae. So I study fossils, and I'll come back to Riversley, where I actually started my research on fossil bandicoots. But recently I've been trying to find the origins of the bandicoots. Unfortunately, the fossil record of Australia is pretty patchy, so the first really true bandicoots you can find are from these 2 formations, the Dana and Namba, and they're here in South Australia, Nick Lake Hare, and that's over here is Namba formation. So these are all the different layers where you can find bandicoots. So the Minkina local fauna at the top is actually the oldest, 26 million. And Kujumapu is the youngest. It actually goes down to maybe 18 to 15. There's no date for that site yet. When you actually look at the diversity through that site, I don't have time to go into too much detail on that. I've already started naming some of the species in there. But the general gist is we're working with jaws and isolated teeth. It's really hard. We can't say much about the evolution of these things, even though compare them to the Riversley material, which is a lot better. So it's very complex to actually even assign a genus to some of these things because they're so incomplete. But what's interesting is that all these ones, so this one is actually from a genus called Bulungu. The original species for that is Riversley, it's much younger. And there's something I'm not even sure what it is from Pimpa. And it's only a little jaw, it's really hard to tell what we're looking at. But what's really exciting is we have our first bilby. So all of these are ancient bandicoots, but we have one bilby that comes around 25 million years ago. That's the oldest bilby. So we can get to Riversley, and that's where you get the exciting material. So Riversley is in northwest Queensland, and when I started my project on bandicoots, there was already one species that was named. So that's the species that the family Yaralidae was assigned to. So it's this tiny little bandicoots. So that's the head is about this big. So the whole animal is about this big. So it's the size of the Antechinus, or the small dasyurids. So you have to think about it. Back in the Miocene at that time period, there's not many dasyurids around. They haven't actually diversified yet. Bandicoots were the ones actually occupying all those environments. So we have Bulungu palara, which is another insectivorous bandicoot, just a tiny bit bigger than Yarala. But when I started actually with the best specimen, which is this one, Galadis speciosus. It was the first fossil bandicoot I got to work on. And these are really cool because they're carnivorous bandicoots. So there's no carnivorous bandicoots around these days. So there was multiple species at Riversley, and obviously they went extinct sometime in the Miocene. We also found in Riversley the ancestor to probably all the modern bandicoots, so managed to call it Crash Bandicoot after the video game character, because it was kind of crashing in the Miocene. There was no modern bandicoots until the Pliocene. and also an early bilby. So that was actually, that's the oldest named bilby so far, and the one from the Todana, when I actually name it, that will be the oldest again. So that's around 15 million years. And what's really interesting is this one, Maju varie. So there's 2 species within Maju, and these are actually the most modern-looking bandicoots at Riversley. And they probably actually gave rise to both the New Guinean bandicoot and the Australian bandicoots. You still haven't seen a pig-footed bandicoot because they arrive later. Riversley is a pretty amazing place. It's not just little teeth and jaws. You're actually looking at skulls, and some of the skulls actually interesting and concept actually a lot more about the development of the animals. So within that genus Maju, it was actually every stage of the development from a patch young over to a very advanced adult. So that's the smallest skull we found is probably like just a patch young that just came out, and it's starting to actually come out of the pouch and actually just feed on the tip from the outside. And then this one and next one probably just staying in the den with the mother, and then you get to one that's probably living with the mother but coming out of the den, and down to the adults and a pretty old adult. What's really interesting is you can actually see when actually wear is starting to happen. So therefore, when the animal is stopping to lactate and actually started to eating food. And it occurs around that time period here. And this is actually what you see in the timing for the bilby, which spends more time with the mother than the other bandicoots. So really interesting. I'll move on. We also have a complete skeleton. I won't mention too much about it because we're going to have a paper later this year about this. But that's the only semi-complete skeleton that we have of any fossil bandicoots. Moving on to the Pliocene, and then we get here to something that looks more like a modern community. So we have some ancient bilbies. We have the first pig-footed bandicoot arriving, which are named after Alex Baines. We have some of the early Australian bandicoots, and we have remnants from the Miocene, things that survived the extinctions in the Miocene, and they survived in the Pliocene, but probably went extinct soon afterwards. And the fossil record is all on the east side of the country, unfortunately, so there's nothing in WA. But when you get to the Quaternary, you start to have actually a better picture of Australia as a whole. So that's something I'm starting to look into more, and I'll just give you one example before I end the talk. So I started with the pig-footed bandicoots, looking at the modern species, worked out actually there's actually 2 species, not 1, and then actually looking back at the fossil records, trying to actually work out where each of these species actually occurred. We found like the new species actually occurred all in the sandy desert in the center, and the old species in there. But if we look at all the sites from middle Pleistocene, the northern species went all the way up to Cape York, and that southern species all the way up to here. So it's as we feel like with the fossil record, we can actually look at the distribution and actually understand how the environments change for time. Thank you very much.